Hi, I just love black beans. I think it's such an amazing piece of theater on Zoom, but like really good theater on Zoom. So thank you both so much for sharing it with our audiences as well.
Thank you, thank you. It was a pleasure to make and figure out how to make a piece of theater over Zoom and make it feel like it. We weren't trying to hide the fact that it was on Zoom,
Yeah, yeah, it
and
was.
yeah,
And it was just really fun. It was just a joy from sort of conception to recording. It's been such a beautiful process.
Tell us the origin story. What is the beginning of the project? Where did the idea come from?
So we were
Señorita Lopez.
hello, hola. Uh,
Hola.
Thinking about programming the Huntington, we had done a lot of audio work, and then thought, no, let's do something for Zoom, a piece specifically created for Zoom. And right away, I wanted to collaborate with Joelle, who I've worked with, had worked with a few times in the past. And like we originally thought it might be sort of cooking and interviews and just us being us, and then maybe we'd have a guest come on and talking about how we were doing in the pandemic, and here's a recipe that I love. Like we knew it would involve cooking,
Uh-huh.
but then Joelle had this great idea. Why don't you take it from there, Joelle?
well, after the conversation of it perhaps being something more like reality based, I kind of was like, what if it was actually a piece of fiction and we are siblings and it's about creating a recipe over Zoom? And that also kind of uh, was the product of conversations that Melinda and I had about what was going on in our personal lives, what was happening while we were uh, surviving this pandemic. And I found myself calling my mom a few times to talk me through Puerto Rican recipes because I just like missed food from home and I couldn't go visit as easily as I normally
Right.
would. Um, and we both had very similar backgrounds growing up. As I'm Puerto Rican, uh, Melinda's Cuban, and we both grew up in Massachusetts, and that was kind of an interesting coincidence and also a weird way to grow up as these like Caribbean families in a predominantly white state, and
Yeah.
having these like kind of pockets of Caribbean culture was like, oh yeah, that was kind of weird.
I love the line, right? That mommy wanted to be there because she liked being the only brown person in Quincy, right? That was sort
Mhm.
of it really.
Well, and that it's not a story that you hear a lot, even though Joelle and I have read it, I've lived it. It's not you don't see that represented in the world. Like there are actually Latinos everywhere, and then there was this other great memory that we shared, which we discovered in conversations, which is our families took us camping when we were kids, and so we both had this nostalgia for being a little kid sleeping outside in a tent, running around in nature, and specifically New Hampshire, right? We have these white mountains
Wow. So both of you, that's actually a true that's a memory for both of you in the
for
White
both of
Mountains.
us. And then we
Totally.
just, and so then in turn, we kind of came up with a like, what's the container? All right, it's Zoom, it's brother, sister, we're cooking a recipe. And then we just started saying, all right, what happened? What are
Right.
our lives like? How are we connected? How are we different? And then finding these connections that were personal to us and putting them in the show was just a really fun. We had a Google Doc open, and so we'd talk and talk and talk, and then we'd go and write separately, and then come back and let me read you mine. No, let me read you mine. Oh, yours is awesome. No, let's do mine. No, let's do
Yeah.
yours.
Like we kind of Frankensteined together
Yeah.
a script based on
Yeah.
individual writing that then, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint,
No,
oh,
it's true
I wrote this part
collaboration.
and you wrote
Yeah.
this part,
Yeah.
and it's very much a collaboration, which is really fun.
And
Um,
I'll also just add, we wanted it be Zoom, but we wanted it to be more than Zoom. And so like the addition of Jaime Castañeda, who came in to direct and just like brought in these amazing animators and people who could make the story kind of
Right.
explode, that it seems ordinary until it's extraordinary. And that was really wonderful.
It's a stunning mix, right? Because it's both like being part of this Zoom family call, and then the artistry of the piece takes us away into other worlds too. So
Yeah.
bravo. You know, you're part for us of a celebration in June that Hartford Stage, you know, is amplifying other más latinidad, ¿no? Que the artists of Latinx and Hispanic heritage, right? American artists like both of you who have these backgrounds. And I think, you know, we fall into a trap in this country of assuming that to be Latino or Latinx is to be one thing. And part of what's so extraordinary, right, is that there's continents engaged here. There's islands and different countries and different cultures. And I think you both with the Puerto Rican and the Cuban energy. I mean, I love the whole thing about the cilantro, right? You know, no. That's how I make black beans, by the way, is with cilantro. So
Yeah. Because, you know, there's like, I think Latinos are, right, we're not a monolith, and we're actually all incredibly tribal. And
right.
so the difference of like whether you use cilantro or whether you use parsley is like, it's a huge deal, right? And then, because that's kind of fun and that's got a texture to it, but it's also got a gravitas to it, right? It's both like a cultural family. It's incredibly location driven. And I never lived in Cuba. I don't know, Joel, if you ever lived in Puerto Rico, but like we have this connection to these places through our ancestors, right? So it's just interesting how you absorb that, right?
How do you think it's reflected in your work, both of you? How in not only in this piece, but in general in making work, where do you think that lives?
Well, I feel like what I always try to do is speak from a place of specificity and authenticity to my experience as a queer Puerto Rican artist. And in that specificity, I think there then is a universal message, and to feel like, you know, I don't necessarily need to speak to the entire the entire experience of Latinidad. I can speak to this very specific version of it, being Puerto Rican from Massachusetts, and that's kind of a very unique experience of being part of this community and part of this culture. And so, and then as a performer, I am often frustrated with the kinds of narratives that Latinos are forced to or expected to be a part of. And a thing I can do as a writer and as a creator is to further our stories and show different sides of our community and our experience that perhaps people don't know. And I think that was really intentional for Melinda and I to like, this show is about love and joy, and it can be funny and it can be heartwarming, and it's not about trauma porn, and it's not about like I was just really curious and excited to like just show a different side of us, that we can be fun and funny and yeah, show a different part of the experience.
Yeah, we were really mindful of wanting the piece to leave people in a place of optimism, and that, you know, that connection is possible, and this moment is, you know, this moment of opening up, of we're going out, we're leaving our homes, we're entering back in, you know, it's a step we're taking, and it's potentially scary, but that there's hope there.
I found that aspect so moving. The idea Melinda, that your character had not left the house, and that I won't do a spoiler alert, or I mean, I'll save us a spoiler alert, but that it's two people trying to get through a really difficult time, as we all have been trying to get through,
Yeah.
and now it's
And
finally, yeah,
and how they need each other and how they hold each other up, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. Thank you both so
Thank you
much.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Melia.